Welcome back. We're back with Commander Salamander, one of our knowledgeable naval experts, but we want to talk about something else today, which is infiltration into the United States by the Chinese Communist Party. Thanks for joining me, Commander.
Well, thanks a lot, Todd. I really appreciate the invitation to come on again.
So I had you on, and you were good enough to remind me, because we started talking a few weeks ago, but about this Chinese land, I think it was a trailer park or something next to Whitman Air Force Base.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I think it brought up, and it may be very, very innocent, because, part of what got everybody's attention is when you look at Whitman Air Force Base, which for those that may not be familiar with it, everybody loves to talk about our B-2 bombers, which we use to buy some time against the Iranians when we hit their nuclear plants. And it really is a unique platform. We only have 19 of them. That's 19 that'll make a shadow on the ramp. And for maintenance and for a variety of other reasons, how many are actually mission capable at a time? Probably a half of that. So it's a very efficient to put all of your eggs into one basket, but you need to walk carefully, so to speak. So we've got all of our B-2s at one base. And if my memory serves me right, runway 01, which is at 010, which is northeast, that runway, if you take off out of there, by the time you gear up, about a third of a mile to your right, which is one lap around the your basic high school track, is a trailer park. And that trailer park is owned by an LLC, the limited liability company. And that limited liability company is owned by, I think, one or two more limited liability companies. It's a nest in a nest, which is done. Innocent people will say, well, I'm just sloppy and I have a variety of investors I work with. But what it really is, it's a way to hide ownership.
Sure.
And when you actually find out who the ownership is, it's a Chinese national of questionable character. And I wrote about it a couple of weeks ago. And it might very well be innocent. It just might be one of those ways that people find to park money. Because we are a high trust society who doesn't realize the rest of the world is not high trust. We and other nations that are high trust, though with each passing year, we're less high trust because of it. A lot of nations come to us to hide their ill-gotten gains. There's a lot of money laundering that goes on in involving real estate. Not saying that's the case here, but many people are saying that there are other cases where this is where people find a way to park money. Not only park money, but park influence. About a half decade ago, I could be wrong, Governor DeSantis in Florida really was ahead of the power curve here. Other nations, other states in the U.S. have come along as well. Passed a state law that prevents nationals from the People's Republic of China, Russia, North Korea, Venezuela, Iran from owning property within a certain distance of sensitive facilities, including military bases. And there's a lot of, as you would expect, the gnashing of teeth and rending of clothes about that. But as people have started to pull the thread on it, more and more people are starting to realize Americans can't go over to China and buy thousands of acres of their most valuable land next to their most sensitive facilities, but we sure do let them do it here. And it's not just here. Again, this could be very well innocent, very innocent.
Well, I don't think it is. The fact they tried to hide it is proof enough that it's not. But go ahead.
And it's replicated all over the U.S. You and I could literally spend an entire semester just going state by state, county by county, going, really, why is this here? Why is this here? Why are we letting people park their capital in these places? But there was an interesting study that was done in the UK that has a bunch of people shrugging their shoulders. And it did an interesting metric, which this is why, if you've watched the movie Moneyball about baseball, the guy who is the focus of it, he was an economist by training, but numbers are numbers. It's kind of like the margin call, where it was a rocket scientist who figured out that the credit default swaps on mortgages was garbage. Math is math. And so, one thing economists do is they attach numbers to certain characteristics and they look for patterns and things that fall outside of the normals. And what was interesting here, and I don't know whether it was an economist that did this, but and I'm plus or minus a couple of decimal points here, but there was a study done in the UK that in the UK, for every, I think it was like for every 2 Indian restaurants, there's 1.4 Chinese restaurants. Interesting figure. One would assume you spread that out, and that random sample plus or minus half a standard deviation will be replicated in 87.6% of cases. However, what they found out is around some of their most sensitive military bases in the UK, including their nuclear ones, and as you're probably familiar with, the US nuclear program and the British nuclear program are hand in glove. They're one and the same. If you learn something about the British nuclear program, you've learned 80% of the American nuclear program. They will have, in some places, 5 Chinese restaurants to every 1 Indian restaurant next to these bases. And they don't know why. But they have had some cases where they've had some arrests here for espionage associated with these locations. But when you really look at it and what you try to accomplish here, there are, and this doesn't include people who have immigrated, like the Hong Kongers who came to the UK and became citizens. These are passport holding citizens of the People's Republic of China. In the United Kingdom, there's 500,000 of them. If you upscale that population-wise to the US, it comes to a bit over 2.5 million. We don't have 2.5 million. The figures that I saw one figure, there's 1.4, other was 1.7. In any case, this is a huge pond that you've got to find the one bad fish in. So, and we know, especially in the last, during the Biden administration, but even before then, we have thousands of military-aged males from the People's Republic of China were just let to cross the border. They're not all working in kitchens in your local restaurant. So should things go sideways in the Western Pacific, the American security services will logically focus on where are the PRC nationals do we need to be concerned with. When you have these huge bodies of people who you've got to sift through them to find your most important people. And when they also own property and they've been there for a while, that trailer park might be very innocent. But remember the Ukrainians, special forces earlier this year, where they penetrated all the way into Siberia with tractors full of drones. And they managed to take out a lot of the strategic air forces of the Russians.
30%.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no excuse to have a drone capable base right next to the B-2 base. I mean, that's insane. Not even hitting one on takeoff, but just hitting them on the ramp. You know, I've been talking about this for decades. Yeah.
And it's a feature and a bug. We're a free nation, a republic founded on individual liberty. We rightfully and healthfully recoil. And of course, everybody gets the knee-jerk reaction from what FDR did with Americans that just happen to be of Japanese extraction after World War II. So that always gets thrown in your face during World War II, excuse me. But this is different. These are PRC nationals. And I had one little example of where this is when we were getting ready for the show. And unfortunately, more people don't know about this, but the latest news on the 12th of March, the U.S. Attorney for Michigan announced that, and you'll have to pardon me, my Chinese is not that good, but a 33-year-old researcher, Yongqing Zhan, of the People's Republic of China, pled guilty for something that doesn't sound very good, smuggling in a biological pathogen.
Yeah.
The good people watching our borders caught him bringing in a fungus called Fusarium germanicum, which for a guy who studied Latin for a few years, I could have done better there. Anyway, he was working out of the University of Michigan lab. What that fungus is, it's called a head blight disease. It hits all your major grain crops.
Yeah.
We don't have it in North America. They do have it in China. And what they found out by grabbing this guy's phone and a few other things, I'm sure that they're not sharing with us. The People's Republic of China funded this guy's research in China on this fungus, and he is a member of the Chinese Communist Party.
There you go.
And so it's not just people buying property. It's not just shell corporations that have questionable characters. And this is something that I've been writing about for over a decade. And anybody like me who has kids in college in STEM degrees, especially in grad school, and you go to the graduation ceremonies and people get their masters and PhDs, the amount of passport carrying people from the People's Republic of China that are taking limited seats at our best research institutions, and they're not studying non-technical degrees. These are, biostat, physics.
So why is Trump allowing 600,000 Chinese students to continue?
He is poorly briefed into the situation, and I don't think he appreciates it. And that's one of the things that he has done since he's become president that has had my spines come out more than anything else. Yeah. It's a malpractice. We've been doing it for generations. Somebody got hold of him, and this is what gets me with the academics. Is they'll tell you, well, they pay full ride. We get lots of money for that.
Yeah, all our universities would collapse if the Chinese can't come here and spy.
Maybe we have too many universities. Yeah. Or maybe we could limit it. Hey, you want to come get your PhD? That's great. UC Santa Barbara, you can get a PhD in Latina studies. Why don't you go there and get that degree? But why don't we have Americans? And if we want to get some international vibrancy, then why don't we invite some Japanese, some Brits, some French, some Australians to join us in our theoretical physics PhD programs? Not somebody who's going to take that back to the People's Republic of China. And especially in some of the biological fields, how many COVID experiences do we have to go through before people really start to take seriously what these things can do? And again, the issue at Whitman Air Force Base in the trailer park, it might be completely innocent, but it's a warning.
Well, you can't take the risk.
No,
you can't take the risk of being drone distance, and that's a long way today.
You don't have to have read too much Tom Clancy to follow the bouncing ball, how that can work out.
Yeah, no kidding. Along with all the other sabotage type operations we've seen, railway, food destruction, food producers, refineries. I think it's a major, major issue. We've been doing a show called Sabotage SitRep, and I may throw this on there because people need to wake the heck up.
Well, let me give you another data point there to chew on. And I get a little excited about this because it's personal for me. Though my ancestral homeland is the Magnolia State in Mississippi. Family was there.
Where in Mississippi?
The right at the Louisiana-Mississippi border in Emmett County.
Yeah, my family's from Moss Point, which is right near Pascagoula.
We're probably related. My family's been there for so long.
I don't remember any salamanders in my family. But
if you're south of Jackson, we're probably blood relative. But there, I was as my relatives would inform me, I was the weird cousin who was born and raised in the free state of Florida. But in 2005, we had a bacteria come in from, here's shocking, Asia, called citrus greening. It's passed on by a Asian physalid that also showed up. It's a bug. It's also showed up in California in 2012. Nobody knows how it flew across the Pacific to get here, but when you go through Central Florida, a lot of the ripped up orange groves and derelict orange groves that you see, a lot of it is from the developers helping to our internally displaced refugees from New Jersey and New York find homes. But a lot of it's because the citrus greening has completely destroyed the citrus industry in the state of Florida. Huge impact. That's a biological weapon.
Yeah, sure.
And I could very well see if you have PRC nationals trying to smuggle in a fungus, head blight fungus that would affect cereal crops, why wouldn't a PRC national smuggle in that disease to study in a lab here and intentionally or unintentionally release it. It got here somehow. Those insects did not fly by themselves, and they did not survive an ocean-wide voyage in a ship to get to Florida in 2005. So there's a very real, is this killing people? No. But does this impact an economy? It sure does. And if you have the mindset that it's not fair that your country suffers under something and your world's greatest competitor does not suffer under that, well, if you can't solve the problem yourself, you're going to give it to them too. And that's what we have with citrus greening. So now we have the same problem that they have in Asia.
Well, I mean, I believe they fully have been doing this for decades. And you look, here's a headline for you tonight at 5:20 p.m. Farmed oysters and scallops in Japan are dying off in premature and massive quantities, up to 90% of their harvest destroyed. Government investigating. There's nothing going on between China and Japan right now, is there?
Oh no, they've been exchanging butterflies and kisses recently.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, there are some people who will disagree with me on this, but this has been kind of my pet peeve for a quarter century.
Good.
I'm very happy to see Japan getting her footing again.
Yeah, for sure.
It's right. I just wish they could get their birth rate up. Same with Korea.
Well, so that's something we need to watch. And so how do we get the Pentagon's attention to this? I mean, it's unacceptable. It's like in Vietnam when you had all the Air Force guys with their brick radios walking around talking out in the open before all the flights took off, and the VC just sat on the fence and, okay, they're coming again now. We're listening to them on the radio. I mean, how do you stop this insanity?
We have to have the right people in Congress willing to pass laws, and we have to have the executive branch realize the seriousness of what we're facing here. Mm-hmm. You will get. I was talking with an acquaintance of mine who's ear deep in the military-industrial complex, and that's okay. We need good people there. And he was pinging on me about some of the things I've written recently, and I was like, well, if that means that people are going to have to suffer with the flying monkey defense lobbyists going around Congress trying to stop it, so be it. But it's a good fight. It's a fight worth having, and I think this is one of those circumstances too. It's not as strong, I don't think, but I reserve the right to be wrong here. The China lobby is huge because there's a lot of money to be made. Talk to folks in Australia about how hard the China lobby is fighting people who are trying to do the right thing for national security over there. And we still have, believe it or not, in our quote official unquote organs in the State Department, a lot of China doves, a lot of pro-China people who even if they recognize what the People's Republic of China wants to do, and you don't have to imagine it, they'll tell you it's inconvenient to them. They have their entire academic and think tank careers and their government careers around a different view of what they wanted China to be. And I think the best encapsulation of that was President Obama's, we welcome China's peaceful rise speech, blah, blah, blah. And those people do exert a lot of influence, and they think people are overreacting. I think if given the higher direction and guidance and commander's intent, the Pentagon will respond. The FBI will respond.
I'm watching my friends gain more and more weight, and then eventually I got to tell you, this is a little dark, but bad diet literally killed my whole crew.
Wow.
Diabetes, a stroke. I mean, all kinds of stuff. It's like, you had a stroke? You're not even 50 years old. You guys got to quit eating this stuff. Your body knows what's what. You're not conscious of this. But that's why people will go to the refrigerator and they'll grab this and that and the other and put together this outrageously elaborate combination of foods. Your body's trying to reach balance. Unbeknownst to us, our bodies are always trying to reach homeostasis. You can't eat all of this stuff and expect to live a long time. And one thing led to another, and I went, forget this. We're going to make our own product. So we partnered with one of the world's top 3 biochemists where nutrition-specific study is concerned. I said, all I want is the best nutritional and immune support product in the world. So we mixed it in yogurt. It's a powder. I got a bag of it here. I keep one on the console all the time. just so I can show people.
Yeah.
And it's a powder. Now, this is not candy. This is hardcore nutrition. And sugar is an enemy. And most people do not know that the reason these bellies are showing up on people all over the place, your body makes fat to store the toxins it can't get rid of. So it just puts them over here. But I can tell you this, you take this for 30 days and then lay off of it for 2 or 3 days, and you'll go, good grief, give me some more. Skin, nails, hair growing back. Cut yourself and it heals in half the time.
Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
Will respond. The CIA will respond.
Well, they shouldn't have to respond. They should be out in front dealing with this on a proactive basis. Maybe they are, but it doesn't look like it. There's been too many egg farms destroyed in the last 2 years across egg production facilities. Chickens, cows, beef production, all of that's been targeted in the U.S. for sure.
And there's in the Chinese as well. They're playing tough when it comes to agricultural issues because they know that we sell. Again, it's a money thing. We sell a lot of agricultural goods to China, and if we start pushing back too hard, they know where to press the button to release the flying monkey lobbyists and to scare people. I saw a picture the other day of I think it was in Kansas, huge piles of sorghum after harvest because they can't move it because it's not coming off the other end of the pipe.
Well, it is now, I guess, but I was going to say something there. Oh, media is key. Media pressure is key, and there hasn't been any to fight the flying monkeys for some time. So that's what we're trying to build. We got Pentagon credentials. We'll be in there December 1.
Oh,
so
congratulations.
Thank you. We're looking forward to really making a difference there.
Good. Well, there needs to be hard questions, and there needs to be direct questions. And
we're good at that.
And willing to make people uncomfortable.
Yeah, we're good at that. Yeah. So let's switch to another area, Venezuela. What say you happening in the Caribbean? One of my favorite areas.
First of all, I'm a little torqued. I'm torqued because we have a carrier strike route down there. We're rebuilding Roosevelt roads as we speak. We got F-35s down there. I think we have at least a dozen of them. There's a guy up on X, Ian Ellis, who puts out on a regular basis a really nice graphic of all the forces. We had again today B-52s doing, quote, training flights coming down and then taking a hard left as they approach the ABC Islands, Aruba, Curacao, Bonaire, off of Colombia, and then head west over the Venezuelan. But you're not seeing much of it in the news. Besides people complaining about us swacking the cartel drug running boats, which I understand some of the concerns, but I think it's a righteous fight. It's a worthwhile fight. Those cartels and the poison they carry have killed, depending upon if you want to draw the line back, more than a year, they've killed over 1 million Americans. And I understand the demand signal coming from the U.S. Yes. But this, as anybody knows on Econ 101, this is a supply and demand issue. You have to adjust. You have to attack the demand and the supply. And you've got to move that price point. You've got to make this business hard and expensive to do. And we have for decades. And I spent over a year of my life chasing drug runners in the Caribbean and Central America, as most naval officers of my generation and younger have done. And for decades, we did the same thing. And you can't, people say, well, they should be all intercepted. We've tried that. They have fast boats with $100,000 worth of motors on the end of it for a reason, because they're very hard to intercept and the ocean's very big. And you just can't get them all. We've tried something for decades that doesn't work. And President Trump has given us the ability to try a different tack. And it upset some of the usual suspects, but I think it's a righteous fight. And the individuals who are being killed in these boats, they are, in my mind at least, and I'm not bloodthirsty, I'm not heartless. I understand people find themselves in unwelcome circumstances. However, I and others of my generation have sent ordnance downrange, taking out sleeping Iraqi conscripts who have done nothing to nobody and won't, but they were on a target list. We have collapsed buildings that were full of nothing but people at 2 a.m. who were cleaning them before the other people showed up. And these things happen in conflicts. That's why nations need to be careful and people need to be careful who they associate and what they do. Because if you're going to strap on the helmet and you're going to walk on the field, don't be surprised if you get schwacked by the linebacker. You're playing the game. So that's my take on it.
Let me ask you, what do you think about the point that this is not really a drug issue because most of the drugs come through Mexico, and this is more about the oil or about the elections or about some other third parties in agenda? What do you say to that?
I don't think that's an issue. I don't think it's the oil issue in Venezuela any more than it was the oil issue in Iraq. Venezuela could disappear tomorrow and we would have no problem getting the fuel we need. Yeah, there'd be a spike in oil prices across the world. There, going back to the nation we talked about before, Venezuela and Cuba, and to a lesser extent Nicaragua, they are places where the Chinese have great influence in our hemisphere. And they are a source of bad faith actors in a variety of ways. Now, we do have leftist governments. For instance, we have a hard left government in Brazil. We have a hard left government in Colombia now. However, they're not Venezuela. There is a good argument to be made that the last Brazilian election wasn't the cleanest election in the Western Hemisphere, but it's not the same type of leftism that you see in Venezuela, which is more the Cuban and Nicaraguan variety. As a matter of fact, when you do look at South America, I should look it up, but I get Ecuador and Bolivia confused all the time. One of those two nations, after 30 years of socialist rule, actually elected somebody who we would call here a center-right to right-wing free market president. Chile recently has elected a right-of-center government again. And that is the drift. And you have nations like Uruguay, that's a nice little miniature California down there in some ways, but better than California in their governance. And of course, we've seen an emerging miracle of libertarianism helping to fix Argentina, which used to have a per capita GDP. I think it was 87% of the US 100 years ago. Now it's a fraction. So there's positive things in South America, but Venezuela is a malignancy. And during the Biden administration, they enabled their transnational drug cartels to set up shop all through the US. And it's not just the drugs that are killing people. You look at just the one,
the gang warfare, the human trafficking, all of it.
Yep, the stuff in Aurora, California. These are not good faith actors. Like one thing that I read a while ago that I was like, you know what, you're right. You don't hear much about the Crips and the Bloods anymore, do you?
Yeah. No, you don't.
Know, they used to be the most thought of as the most vicious, nasty criminal enterprises out there. No, they're not. Large place especially in the drug trade, they've been displaced by these South American drug gangs and cartels. And Mexico, which should be, I've mentioned this before, I don't think in this venue, but if anybody hasn't read Ulysses S. Grant's memoir that he wrote as he was dying of throat cancer, I'd advise people to read it. It's great. And the interesting part of that, when he describes his experience during the Mexican-American War, and he made an observation then that I think applies right now as well, that Mexico is a naturally gifted place, huge resources, hardworking people, great geography, but they have horrible governance.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that, America owns part of that, because the money that's coming out of our drug addiction is what's feeding those cartels that are corrupting those governments. I mean,
Yes.
the Mexicans have agency, but we're not helping them. And all these cartels, they're coming out of nations that are being corrupted by them. And so that's a salutary secondary effect, that the U.S. has both the capability and the will to do things against these cartels that the resident nations don't have the ability to do. However, as we learned in Afghanistan, we may have all the watches, but they have all the time. If they look at President Trump and they go, okay, he's been in power less than a year. I have X cash reserves. I got plenty of people that can be killed over the next few years. We've got midterms coming up here in the U.S. They usually slide back. I can hunker down for a while and I'll wait for the winds to change, and then I'll get back to business as usual. So they can wait us out. But again, I think it's a righteous cause. I don't think that deployment down there is sustainable.
It's a lot of money.
It is. It's a lot of money. I think, and I could be proven wrong in 5 minutes, but I don't think we are going to initiate any type of conflict in Venezuela.
I hope not.
Because, one of the things that
we can't afford it right now.
Oh, no, we can't. Not at all. And plus, Trump said no more foreign wars.
He did say that. Yeah.
It's like,
I'm going to hold him to that.
Donald Trump, does he want to be the next, quote, neocon, unquote?
Exactly.
Go around the world looking for dragons to slay? I don't think so. But I think he's trying to make a point down in Venezuela to the regime and the cartels. Because one thing that he did talk about before his first term as president that he never really got his hands around was the drug problem.
Yeah.
He was fighting for his survival for a lot of that. So maybe part of this is he's trying to play catch up for things he wasn't able to do in his first administration, because he was fighting enemies domestic by enemies foreign. I think that's probably the most gracious explanation for what we're doing. But if, as a former planner, if you told me, be prepared to do X, okay. Not that I'm going to, but be prepared to by time Y. I want you to do X. Okay. I would do what I'm asked, what my tasks are. I do my troops to task investigation. I would say, I need the following forces in order to be able to do this. And they say, okay, you've got it. What would I do? I would bring TLAMs, I'd bring an aircraft carrier, and I bring the U.S. Air Force as close as I can get to it, which actually Puerto Rico is not that far from Venezuela as people think. I think it's roughly, if you're driving out of Norfolk, Virginia, it's like a flight to Nova Scotia or Boston or something. It's not that far. And I would build that up, and then I would tell my boss, okay, boss, I got everybody here ready to play. Do you want us to play or not? And then it's the boss's decision whether he wants to play or not. And we go through exercises like that, big and small, all the time.
So on that note, last, I guess, question or area, there's obviously some tension between China and Japan. Korea's involved, and then the Navy buildup. Those two issues. What are your thoughts there? Our Navy, where Chinese naval buildup is on steroids, and how are we doing? As I always ask you.
Right. We're not doing too great.
Yeah.
The Chinese are doing wonderful. They are doing, when we built our Aegis air defense program, which people are familiar with, that's our standard missiles, our SM-2s, our SM-3s, our SM-6s that can take everything out from a flying lawnmower drone to an anti-ship ballistic missile or a real ballistic missile. Rear Admiral Meyer, who was in charge of that program, had a great phrase: build a little, test a little, learn a lot. It was an iterative program. where you would build something, you'd learn, and then you would quickly cycle and do something better and do something better and do something better. You wouldn't wait for the perfect solution. You would build a series of good solutions and it would get better. And by your fourth iteration, you have something that actually is really, really sexy. So they've got a new carrier coming online that is probably the equivalent of the old, conventionally powered Constellation class, not Constellation class frigate, but the old Constellation Forrestal conventional super carriers. There has been, rumors that their next carrier will be nuclear powered. That would not surprise me at all. They have as much nuclear power experience as we did before we had our first nuclear aircraft carrier, the Enterprise. And what they're doing is they are doing generational growth every 5 years, what we took every 15 to 20 years, and what we haven't been able to do this entire century. We can't even put an already designed frigate in the water without huge delays. We've partnered recently with the Koreans to have them. They've bought the Philadelphia shipyard, and hopefully going to bring some of their management engineering techniques to help us there. The Japanese are moving from 1% of GDP to 2% and probably north of there. And that's not insignificant. When you look at the worldwide economy, it's US number 1, China number 2, Japan number 3. Japan is a much stronger economy and with a GDP to buy military than Germany or the UK or France. And they have a prime minister now who has the inclination not to be ashamed of being Japanese and being strong. And for those that have served with the Japanese or exercised with the Japanese in the Pacific, besides the fact that their equipment is incredibly well built, incredibly well maintained, the Japanese can be a little, and again, this is just my American bias, they can be a little rigid. They may not be able to think on the fly as well as we think we can, or at least we used to, but that's okay. They are, the more Japanese warships we have in the Western Pacific, should things get sporty west of the international date line, they may not join the big fight, but what they will say is like, Uncle Sam, I'll tell you what, this part of the Pacific, we've got it. You worry about other things. However, the new prime minister especially has been very, very direct where they will come to the defense of Taiwan should Taiwan be attacked.
Yeah, that's what caused all this, may have caused the shellfish die-off.
Yeah, and Taiwan was at one time a colony of Japan. And in recent years, they have a very, very good relationship with Japan, business and culturally. And that I think is very, very interesting. Of course, the Chinese are very triggered by anything Japanese. But that's, Japan has a choice here. She stands on her own as a nation who's independent with agency and concerns, or she becomes a fief of a resurgent China. And Korea is going to have that same decision. And poor Korea, she has historical issues with Japan, but she has longer term historical issues with China.
So let me ask you, the last election didn't go well for our side in South Korea. So and now they're saying they're going to help us build ships. I mean, how does that work?
Money is an incredibly attractive thing to nations. And I think the domestic political situation in Korea is kind of like the US and the UK relationship, where some of the things that's going on domestically in the UK right now is incredibly unattractive.
You think? You mean
however,
like putting people in jail for tweets?
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't do somebody. No, I'm not bringing my phone to the UK. I'm going to get a burner phone when I go to the UK next week.
I'm concerned they're committing suicide. I don't think they have the will to survive as a nation, but that's another podcast.
I think your concern is spot on. I don't know whether you ever watched the Lotus Eaters podcast, but those guys,
I have been referred to them. We have a European group that does a podcast with us. It's called Eurobytes. I've got two Germans, two Germans and an Austrian, and one of them lives in the UK. And so it's a really good mix of countries, and they referred me to them.
Yeah. But we still have that security arrangement with the UK that we try to keep a firewall between the growing decay of the UK and as far as that Anglosphere standard of freedom and the security requirements. Same thing with domestic politics in South Korea and Japan. I think at the end of the day, the threat that we all face to a resurgent People's Republic of China will outweigh some petty domestic political issues, unless you get some type of revolutionary left-wing government in either place, which I don't think is going to happen.
Okay, well, that's encouraging. Well, thank you. Is there anything else you want to discuss or get out?
Well, I'm probably going to put this up on my Substack tomorrow too, because it really has hit on me. Usually on Fridays, I do a thing called Full Bore Friday, where I will come up with some, inspirational example of heroism, leadership, or just a badass ship like the HMS Warspite or the USS Arkansas or something like that, just as an example about what happened in the past. But about a week ago, I think it was, the Secretary of the Army, Dan Driscoll, he put out a very impressive memo on something that I've changed my mind on a lot over the course of the last 15 years, and that has to do with suicide and suicide in the military specifically. And I'd encourage everybody, you can just Google Secretary of the Army suicide, and the memo will come up. It's one of the best written things I have seen by a military leader, either civilian or military, in a very, very long time. And unquestionably the best thing I've seen written on this topic that is a serious issue for my generation and younger, especially veterans that I've ever seen. And it's about coming into the holiday season and checking in with people, and trying to be that one phone call, that one email, that one text that somebody who has suicidal ideations, it'll break that chain of thought, and just a 5-minute conversation can save a life. And it's really tough during the holiday season. So I know there are a lot of people out there who've got Thanksgiving come up and Christmas, and whether they're, you're in the military or not, if there's somebody inside your circle of acquaintances and friends that you haven't reached out for a while, that you think, especially people who have had, financial or marital issues or something else like that, just give them a call, tap them on the shoulder, let you know that they're thinking about it, which is basically what he says, but he's kind of operationalized it based upon what the Army in Alaska has done in the last 18 months to really impact suicide amongst their soldiers up there. Anyway, that's just as we go into the holiday season, that's something that I think the Secretary of the Army taking a lead on, that whether you're in the military or not, it's a time to maybe tap people on the shoulders you care about that you haven't talked to for a while, who may not have a table to go to at Thanksgiving or Christmas.
Great idea. Great point. I would add to that I was just at the Children's Health Defense Conference down in Austin, and there was a big panel on the guys who fought the vaccine mandate or getting back in. But if you go to armedforces.press, we have the trailer up from that panel on the new documentary is coming out, and Mark Bashaw, Captain Bashaw, who's now back in the Army, he went into the psychotropic drugs and the weaponization of drugs and mental health against service members for different reasons. But his brother killed himself, and he talks about how the drugs are driving. If you have somebody who's vulnerable and then you put these drugs in their bodies, there's a big problem. So anyway, you might want to take a look at that trailer.
I definitely want to look up on that, because I think most people know folks in their life, but for some reason, people think if you have a problem, if you give a pill, it's going to solve it. It doesn't.
No, it makes it worse, especially with these drugs. Yeah.
And everybody's different, and it rewires the brain. And it's heartbreaking. But I'm glad y'all are doing that, Todd. I've missed it, but I'm going to catch up on it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's on AFP. So anyway, thank you, Commander. We'll have you back down the road as always, and appreciate your insight.
Yes, sir. Appreciate the time. Hope you have a great holiday season.
You too. Take